Welcome, everybody, to a very important and serious episode of ADVChina this week. We're talking about how the World Health Organization has really dropped the ball when it comes to educating the public on this new coronavirus crisis. And for those of you who are used to us riding around on motorcycles, don't worry, we will return next week. But we just thought that it would be inappropriate for us to be having a fun, exciting adventure when there's something this serious going on.
There's a reason we also look very tired. It's because we have been non-stop busting our ass trying to go through and sift through all the facts and WeChat messages and videos, and there's so much misinformation on a lot of different angles.
Yep.
But we've tirelessly been working on that, and so we apologize for the lack of normal content.
Yes,
But,
guys, we want to cut through all the BS, and we're not about fear-mongering. We want everybody to know exactly what's going on in China, why it's happening the way it is, and for everybody to just have a level head about this.
Agreed.
So we're going to just start out by talking about the World Health Organization. Now, what's China's relationship to the World Health Organization?
Well, they're a member, right?
That's correct.
And that is a big problem, as you will see in these slides.
Yeah, we're going to start out by talking about the timeline, okay? The World Health Organization timeline related to the Wuhan coronavirus, now called the 2019 nCoV.
Mm-hmm.
So let's begin from the beginning. Okay. Now, guys, on December 31st, this is all related to the World Health Organization. We're not talking about, China or anything like that. On December 21st, the World Health...
31st, yeah.
Sorry, 31st, my mistake. The World Health Organization said it had been alerted to a cluster of cases of pneumonia of unknown causes in Wuhan, China.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is the first time they were alerted to this.
Correct.
Okay, that's all good and well. On January 7, it was the novel virus is identified and named the 2019 nCoV. Okay, so the WHO now knows that this is a coronavirus, etc. Now, January 9 is when the first death was reported to the WHO. Who knows if that's really when the first death happened or not?
Who knows?
Who knows? We're going to talk about that a little later. We have some speculation, but like I said, we'd prefer to stick to facts as much as possible for now.
Absolutely.
Okay, so according to Chinese authorities, the virus in question can cause severe illness in some patients and does not transmit readily between people. So that's the information they had at that time. So up until this point, the WHO is responding responsibly. Okay, they're gathering the information.
Well,
and,
from what we could have seen.
Yeah, so far, according to the timeline.
Sure.
All right, on January 12, China shares the genetic sequence of the novel coronavirus for countries to use in developing specific diagnostic kits, which is great. Now here again is the most important part. I'm not going to read this. I hate people that give a presentation and read their own slides.
Yeah.
Okay, people can see it on the screen, but I want to go over the most important part. So on January 12, the government reports that there is no clear evidence that the virus passes easily from person to person. So if you're the World Health Organization and you're receiving this information from China, you're going to take it at face value and you're going to say, okay, good. So we have the situation under control. It's not that serious. It's not transmitting person to person. On January 13, we have the first case outside of China. Okay. Now, this is already something that, we should start taking note of. It's now actually gone international at this point. And I think we should start really kind of getting people together and discussing how serious this possibly could be, because it's no longer contained to China. Okay. January 15 to 20. The virus spreads to other countries, including Japan and the United States. And on January 20, human-to-human transmission is confirmed. Now, this is the point where they really messed up. Okay? This is where they should have declared it an emergency, an international medical emergency, because now you have proof that it's been passed to various different countries. It's not just like maybe one or two isolated countries in Asia near China. We're talking about around the whole globe. And at the same time, we have confirmation that human-to-human transmission is possible. So this is when they should be like, wait, this is a big deal. These people that have now ended up in other countries, they could be transmitting it and spreading it to other humans. But they continue to just play it down at this point.
This is the biggest oopsie, but at the same time, I want everyone to look at the January 13th thing. The first case that was reported outside of China, that is why you didn't hear anything about it previously, because China didn't want any information to leak. Sure. When it becomes an international issue, that's when people start talking about it, right? Correct. So that means there were people talking within the WHO before that about actually what was happening on the ground, and they were not releasing that information as well, especially if China's a board member.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, we all know by now that there was all sorts of nonsense and cover-ups in China, but we're not trying to rehash and blame the shortcomings of the CCP, because obviously they dropped the ball. It's very apparent that they screwed up and they tried to cover this up for as long as possible. Yeah, they still are. But it's about how the WHO has reacted.
Yeah, because this is the organization we're relying on for reliable information and to deal with it.
The entire world looks at the WHO as an authority on, world health. And so when they start screwing up, they're actually putting people's lives in danger. This is what we're talking about here.
The bomb's coming up.
So anyway, on the 23rd, the WHO declares the outbreak an emergency in China, okay? But does not call it a global health emergency.
Despite international cases.
Yeah. In fact, they went as far as to say that it was only a moderate threat to outside. So by now, they know it's human-to-human transmission. They know that there are cases around the globe now in by that time, there are about 13, 14 countries where it's been reported or something. Okay, so then on January 27, they admit an error. So they say, their previous risk assessment of the virus being very high in China and only moderate outside is actually not correct. So it should actually be very high outside of China too. But they still refuse to declare an international emergency. Okay, why? They themselves are saying it's high risk outside of China, but they still refuse to declare it an emergency. What do you think their motivations are?
This is where I invite the audience to come to your own conclusions as to why they would do that. Could it be economics? Could it be self-interest?
Well, we're going to get to that in a minute. Anyway, on the January the 29th, the WHO states that the mortality rate is estimated at 2%, but still too early to tell. And they praise China for its incredible measures to contain the virus. Okay? And unfortunately, that's... I wouldn't say praising them was a good idea, because in fact it was their lackluster, or in fact it was their criminal behavior towards trying to play this down, sweep it under the rug, hide the information from the rest of the world that actually resulted in it spreading in the first place.
I remember on this day, you and I just being flabbergasted, because we were in this scenario where, we are very critical of the Chinese government.
Absolutely.
And rightfully so, as we believe, right? The way they treat their human rights issues, everything. But this, when we saw the WHO go to that length and actually say CCP rhetoric, we were like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Yeah,
so come on, guys. So they still haven't declared it an international emergency, but they're basically saying, oh, look how amazing the Chinese government is dealing with this. Look at how fantastic they are. They're great, and praising them, right? January 30th. The WHO finally declares the coronavirus outbreak a global public health emergency. Okay? The problem is that while declaring it a public health emergency, they actually put more effort into trying to cushion any criticisms against China and the Chinese government. You actually shared the tweet on your Instagram.
Yeah,
right?
I'd like to read it.
Yeah, please do. When you declare something a global health emergency, it's a global health emergency. It's serious. You can't be like, oh, it's a global health emergency, but go ahead.
Yeah, so this is after they've declared it, but they had to cover it up even more, right? Cover their tracks. WHO, this is their Twitter.
Yeah.
The main reason for this declaration is not because of what's happening in #China, but because of what is happening in other countries. And they go on.
Yeah.
Let me be clear. This declaration is not a vote of no confidence in #China. On the contrary, WHO continues to have confidence in China's capacity to control the outbreak. And this is my favorite one. The committee emphasized that the declaration of a public health emergency should be seen in the spirit of support and appreciation for China, its people, and the actions China has taken on the front lines of this outbreak with transparency, and it is hoped with success.
I mean, you are congratulating the people that are the cause behind this going international. You're saying, oh, everybody else, we should be thanking China. Look at how great they're dealing with
this couldn't have happened
situation.
anywhere. Look at how they dealt with it.
Yeah. All the other countries are at fault somehow.
How do you say that?
Well, you only say that if you're delusional. Now let's read what the actual the leader of the WHO. Let's call him Tedros. That's his name. Okay, he's got a very complicated Somalian name, I believe. He said, the WHO. Well, okay, this is from an article that I lifted. It says the WHO declared the virus a public health emergency of international concern on Thursday. The move allows the agency to recommend travel and trade measures for specific countries, regions and cities that its member states usually follow, despite their economic consequences. In this case, WHO Director General Tedros specifically discouraged any such measures.
So you're already in a situation where they've declared it an international emergency, finally, a month too late.
Yeah.
Right? And then he still goes out and says, no, that's not a good idea.
Yeah, so basically their job is to say, hey, this is a international medical emergency. We should stop, the spread of this. But instead of saying, like, let's take measures, he actually actively advises against it. He's like, let's not stop any flights out of China. But wait, the best part's still to come. He says, and this is his words, the quote, the WHO doesn't recommend and actually opposes any restrictions for travel and trade or other measures against China. Look at the wording, against China.
It's loaded words.
Yeah, exactly. He said, while praising China's response to the outbreak, if anyone is thinking about taking measures, it's going to be wrong. So the WHO leader is saying that if any country tries to restrict travel or trade with China, that they're wrong. Okay, and the way he worded it, against China, is as if people are attacking China. This is incredibly irresponsible, all right? What we're dealing with here is we're dealing with a crisis, a medical crisis, international medical crisis, where there is a disease that has absolutely no cure and no vaccine, and it's spreading human to human at an exponential rate. The numbers that are coming out are just climbing and climbing and climbing. And he's like, no, we shouldn't restrict anything. Things should, in fact, if you try to stop trade and travel with China, you're basically going against them, and it's wrong.
My issue, one of my biggest issues is the doublespeak here. So if the WHO is going to put out an international emergency declaration, right?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they follow it up with the actual recommendations that coincide with that that designation, right? International emergency, but don't change anything.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? That means nothing.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, you can see from the pictures there of the leader, Tedros, with Xi Jinping, leader for life, Xi Jinping. And you can see he's starstruck. He obviously, he's met the leader of China, and he's got a lot of faith in Xi Jinping and a good relationship with Xi Jinping. And China being a part of the WHO means a lot of funding and a lot of prestige and whatever else. So he's going to try his best not to upset China. And I think that's what we're seeing here, is that he's trying to play it down, just like the Chinese government has been playing it down. And perhaps he trusts what they say too much. Maybe he actually has no real experience in dealing with a crisis like this.
I think it's definitely more there's a vested interest in this. Think about how much money China throws around into these massive international, organizations to hold their seat.
Yeah.
And that's what you see with the Belt and Road and all that other stuff that China does. So I don't see this being any different. It's just very disappointing to see a very well-respected international organization that people rely on for safety. And I'll tell you why this is so important. And this is going to come up in these headlines that we sifted through.
Yeah, we're just going to have to go through a couple of...
You guys enjoy these picks.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is very alarming at just how much this has been played down, especially by the organizations that we trust in.
This is what I want to say. The WHO, because they're, the facts. They are the go-to fact checkers, basically, for international crises based on viruses and disease, right? So now you have a situation where all the media around the world, particularly in the American newspapers and websites that we've checked, are using this trope that the Chinese government has played up, almost like out of the Wu Mao playbook, saying that the flu is much more dangerous than the coronavirus, right? And you see it nonstop in every publication.
Yeah, we're seeing this a lot. Now, I debunked this in my Friday video, and in fact, we have to discuss why the coronavirus is worse than the flu. Maybe, you can give people a couple statistics as to why all these headlines are bullshit.
Right. So basically, when we look at a virus, you have to look at its transmissibility. How easily does it spread, right? And the problem is that people are looking at the flu because of all the cases that have been recorded and all these deaths and all this kind of stuff. They're saying that the flu is more easily transmissible than the coronavirus, right?
That's what
Which
they're
is
saying.
Absolutely not true.
It's not true.
Right? So if you look at it, it's called the R naught, right? The R naught, and I have it right up here, for the flu is 1.28.
So what does that mean?
So that means that I have the flu, right?
Yeah.
I don't actually have the flu. You probably get away from me, right?
Sure.
Every time that I basically expel the flu virus, right? There's like I'm gonna affect 1.28 people, which doesn't make sense, obviously, but like it's
just
goes
statistics.
and goes and goes,
So it's
right?
statistics that basically, if you are infected with the flu, you are likely to infect around about 1.28 people.
Yes, correct. And it's cumulative, right?
Yeah.
It keeps going and going and going and spreading. The problem is, and this is from the Chinese researchers and the doctors in China, they're estimating that the R naught of the coronavirus is 4.08.
Yeah, that's the highest.
That's the highest, right? But think about it like this. If I have the coronavirus, I am going to infect 4 people.
Yeah, I mean, I think coming out of China at the moment, they're trying to say it's anywhere between 2.5 to 3 R naught. But statistically, scientists have been looking at this and saying that it's probably closer to 4.08.
Right? So that means that's completely screwed up. That statistic, like you can't say that it's less transmissible than the normal flu.
Yeah.
It's much, much more. At its lowest estimate, it's twice as bad.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
The second thing that's really, really alarming is that people are talking about how the flu kills, I don't know, was 80,000 people per year.
Yeah.
We won't talk about how that's statistically weird and how they report on it very, misaligned in China.
Yeah.
What we'll talk about is the fact that the complications that arise from the flu ends up in 1% of people in the ECU. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
So the people that have like really bad conditions after the flu, they have to go to the emergency room and stay in the hospital. 1%.
1%. Yeah.
The coronavirus is at 20%.
Yeah.
So that's 20 times higher.
Yeah. 20% or more.
Yeah.
It's the numbers, like we said, they're unreliable coming out of China at the moment. But these are based on what scientists have been looking at and the data that's coming out. And this is the issue, right? If you have 1% of people going to the ECU out of the flu, if you've got like...
I'm sorry, we misspoke. ICU, we're computer guys.
What the hell are we saying? Lack of sleep. If you've got 1% going into your ICU, okay, and you've got 1,000 people that are affected and 1% goes, compared to 20% of those 1,000 people, you can understand how the numbers... Yeah. The numbers are going to swamp the hospital systems and all the ICUs are going to be full and there are going to be no beds available. This is the reason why it's a lot worse than the flu. Never mind the fact that the flu has a fatality rate of 0.1%, whereas this, at the moment, the nCoV has a fatality rate of 3% at a minimum.
30 times higher.
At a minimum.
At a minimum.
So all these headlines that we're seeing in the background here are bullshit.
It's very immoral.
It's incredibly immoral. What you're having here is you're having all these mainstream media outlets. They are parroting the bullshit that's coming out of China and out of the WHO.
Yeah.
The flu is in no way more serious than this coronavirus.
I pause it here. I love this. For now, the flu is a bigger risk than the coronavirus, right? We ignore the familiar things that kill, instead obsess over distant threats. Are you kidding me?
How is it a distant threat? It's in our own city where we're living now.
Yes. In LA, there's multiple cases.
Yeah.
Right?
In California, there's a ton.
Yeah.
Now, I think there are 11
in
confirmed
right
cases in America, but they're looking at like 220 or something potentials. And I mean, remember, this is the incubation period. It could spread a lot more. Now, without fear-mongering, we have to
just about to say that. Yeah.
We have to understand just how important it is to be prepared to deal with this kind of thing. If you're listening to these articles, don't worry, the flu's way worse, you're totally okay. You're actually putting yourself at risk, because now you're like, it's fine, and you just carry on with your normal life without taking proper precautions.
Well, what the Chinese government's doing is, in the beginning, we're still reporting on their face-saving methods from the beginning. When they're like, you know what, we got this totally under control, they're like scrambling, trying to hide it. Guess what? America dies, 80,000 people die in America every year because of the flu. They're still using this. This is from like yesterday, basically. They're still using these as headlines, and that's super irresponsible for journalists, for media, for the Chinese government, and the WHO to keep pushing that.
Yeah,
you're potentially murdering people.
Absolutely, and I mean, we've seen this from the beginning from the Wumaos, which are the Chinese nationalists, the paid and unpaid ones, and we've seen it from the China apologists too. You know, I should say the CCP apologists, not China apologists. CCP apologists have been parroting this whole thing about, ooh, the flu is so serious. Maybe we should warn Chinese people who travel to America to watch out from catching the flu because, you know, it's so dangerous, that kind of crap. And, you know, it's immoral and it's stupid because, like I've stated before, the flu is something that the whole world knows about. They know how to deal with it. It's predictable. You know, kind of when the flu season's coming, you can expect a certain amount of fatalities. You can expect a certain amount of infections. And we have a vaccine for it. And of course, yes, it's not perfect, but we know it. It's the enemy we know. This is an enemy we don't know. And the way it's growing and the way it affects people is far more severe than the flu.
My issue is that it hasn't run its course. The coronavirus has not run its course. So you're comparing it, like you said, to the enemy, the demon you know, right?
Yeah.
And you're trying to come up with a conclusion for a very new virus that already has up to 30 times worse statistics.
Correct.
Right? And so what are you guys doing?
It's immoral. It's immoral what they're doing. I can't stand it. And anyone who's parroting this narrative about the flu being more serious, trying to play it down, you guys are really doing a massive disservice to everyone around the world because we need to be focusing on the coronavirus now, not how much worse the flu is, you know? It's ridiculous. Anyway, let's move on to just talking about the situation in general, right?
Sure.
In Wuhan, from what we've been seeing, all the information that's coming out of Wuhan contradicts the official numbers, right?
Right now, I got the official number right up here.
Okay, let's hear what the official numbers are.
Pull that up. Right now, currently, according to China, there are... Wow, that just jumped.
Yeah, it just jumped.
Wow.
It's about 20,000. 20,000.
Yeah, about 20,000 cases, 426 dead. And the people in Wuhan that are being persecuted and arrested, a lot of them are coming up with numbers that absolutely flip this on its head.
Yeah. I mean, we've got actual, like you can see the guy in the background who was arrested. I'm sure by now you know about this guy called Feng Bin.
Well, I do, but maybe the audience doesn't.
He has been walking around to the hospitals and live streaming and filming, you know, kind of what's been going on. And this actually resulted in him being detained and taken away.
Yes.
And we'll just let that play in the background. But basically, in the clip that's in the background, he went to the local hospital and he saw that there were 8 body bags inside of a bus to be taken to the crematorium. He walked into the hospital and saw someone die right there again. And so that's just one little visit. He's already seen 9 dead bodies. Okay. You have to understand that...
This is one hospital.
Yeah, one hospital, one quick visit.
Yes.
If this guy's seeing 9 dead bodies directly... We can't say that there's like 400 dead or something.
No.
If you think about just statistically how much, you know, the crematorium has been, what's that crematorium called again?
I can't remember,
yeah,
but
it's been running 24 hours a day.
In its legal operation schedule was 4 hours per day.
Yeah, so
it's now 24 hours a day.
A 24-hour-a-day crematorium that's got 30, you know, actual.
Yeah. Oh, Winston. But Winston, there was only 400 people that died, so that doesn't make any sense.
No, I mean this is why we have to start to try and poke holes without, you know,
without
tinfoil hat and bullshit. We just have to look and see what's in front of us. So anyway, the story of this Feng Bin guy is actually quite interesting because pretty much after he posted this live stream, he got a visit at home by basically a squadron of so-called
It'll come up here in a little bit.
Health officials all dressed in their hazmat suits and stuff, demanding to check his temperature and said, oh, you've been to some high-risk areas, we have to take you in type thing.
We can actually skip to that part, so people can see what he said. People don't need to see grim...
You don't need to see all the dead bodies and stuff. By the way, I must point out that you see all the IV drips from the roof and stuff, that's normal. That's everyday Chinese hospital.
I'm glad you pointed that out because a lot of people on YouTube, even people that I respect, they're like, look it, there's no capacity. Yes, there probably is no capacity, but this is very normal scene in China.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so he shows a couple dead bodies and we don't need to see that. And then later, come on, let's see, where is it? A couple more.
Towards it, yeah, you're almost there.
By the way...
there you go.
Okay. There are multiple people reporting these kind of things. There are multiple, leaks of information coming out of Wuhan. Doctors, nurses, public like this guy, and the other human rights lawyer that's currently in a lot of trouble in Wuhan as well. There's a ton of people that are releasing this kind of information, and if you look at it objectively, without trying to throw a bias on the situation, you just look at it from a factual point of view, you can see that they're not lying. This is it's way worse.
I'll put it to you this way. We've lived in China for so long that we know that you have to severely self-restrict the information that you're covering, putting it out, even if you're not a journalist, even if you're two guys on bikes, literally going through a village and they try to arrest you, right?
Yes. Yeah.
If they're willing to do that for a perceived problem that you're trying to dig up, right?
Yeah.
Why would you put your life on the line? Because you're putting your life on the line to get this information
These
out.
guys, the reason why we're not seeing so many people streaming and sharing out of Wuhan specifically is because look at what happens. This guy, basically the reason why he was released, and he was released the next day,
which was surprising,
is because of all the pressure from the public, because they'd watched his live stream of him.
Do you know why? Because
detained.
It wasn't just for the outside world.
Yeah.
If it was for the outside world, he'd be gone,
Sure.
dude. But it was domestic people within China that were saying, "You're a hero. Thank you for giving us real information." And it wasn't like the Wumaos on our comments.
Yeah.
The majority of people were supporting him.
Correct.
So imagine the pressure on the police. And he says on this video, which I thought was amazing, he said, "If I disappear, if you arrest me and I disappear, then you've just proved that you're lying."
Absolutely.
And so they're kind of like hands tied. They're like, if we don't let this guy go,
I know.
You know?
I know. So anyway, the fact that somebody like this, it takes an incredible amount of courage to basically break the law, because in China you're not allowed to spread rumors or do fear mongering or disrupt the harmony of society. It's actually, there's a law against that, which they use in these kind of situations.
Yeah.
And you certainly cannot criticize the Chinese government in the way it handles a situation like this, especially not now. So this guy luckily was released, but that goes back to our original statement that there are very few sources coming out at the moment because everybody is shit scared. And they know that if they go ahead and publish something online, that the chances are that them and their families are going to get into trouble with the law, with the CCP. So that's why you have people that are now they're done. They're like, you know what? Everyone's dying anyway. I'm just going to get some information out.
You remember in the beginning, after, I think it was January 12th or something, when it finally was an international case, we were awash in information, right? Everyone was going ape within China, trying to figure things out, basically. Now it's a trickle. It's a trickle, like you said. But we still have sources, thankfully, that we're getting stuff from, but it is few and far in between at this point, and that's terrifying. I can't imagine what's happening on the ground.
It's pretty bad, and like I said, I do have still a lot of contact with doctors in Shenzhen and so on. And the way things are being handled is quite poorly, especially when it comes to things like actual medical supplies. So, for instance, masks that have been donated to the Red Cross or to other charity organizations just aren't finding their way to the right places. There's a lot of corruption involved with the Red Cross. Basically, they got given, oh man, I had the numbers. My wife actually gave them to me. They got given, I think it was something like 32,000 masks they were given, right? Now, please don't quote me exactly on these numbers, but to give you an idea. So they were given like 32,000 masks. Only 3,000 of those masks and the low-grade ones ended up, and this is from the Chinese Red Cross, ended up going to the hospital that needed them the most in Wuhan, the one that's hit the hardest. 12,000 of them ended up going to a private hospital that has nothing to do with dealing with this outbreak.
It was a cosmetic hospital.
Yeah,
Or no, it was a fertility hospital.
Fertility and cosmetics hospital. But on top of that, you have situations where, these masks are being diverted to government staff and employees, like Communist Party members.
A lot of the PLA.
Yeah, and the PLA and stuff. And in fact, a lot of the international donations that are coming in from overseas are being funneled to the PLA, which I guess it makes sense because they're going to do disaster relief and stuff. But they're not actually going where you expect.
Do you want to run his video or do you want to run our background behind, sir?
Yeah, I'll just go.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Anyway, basically, we're dealing with a situation which is quite common in these outbreaks in China, where things are not ending up where they're supposed to go. Just like with the Sichuan earthquake, and I donated my entire salary and it ended up not going to help the people, but actually to the company that I'd given the money to, which
Slash the Communist Party.
Yeah, which really was disappointing. Now, people have been sending masks and stuff through, but they've been telling us that they're getting stopped.
Yeah, so
customs.
we've had tons of subscribers that are like really worried because they have either family, friends, people they know. They're trying to deliver boxes of masks over there, so they get directly, they don't have to get price gouged at these pharmacies and stuff.
Sure.
So they show up and they try to send, I don't know, maybe like 1,000 of these bad boys, right?
Yeah.
And they show up to customs, and customs takes them, and the people report back to the people in the U.S. that they never received them.
Yeah.
Right? So this is what we're dealing with right now.
Sure.
That shows the morality on the ground with the officials.
It's tough. Look, there's a lot going on with the fake masks and price gouging. Now, listen. The Chinese government has been very vocal about cracking down on people trying to price gouge with these masks. They've fined some pharmacy that was charging like 800 RMB for a box or whatever.
Yeah, except they're all doing that.
Yeah. So they've apparently going to be receiving a fine. Yesterday I was speaking to a friend in Beijing, and he said that it's been impossible to get like proper 3M masks anywhere, and they just get those normal surgical masks, which are apparently not effective at all. And
less, at least.
Well, less effective. He saw a sign on a shop saying that they have 3M masks for sale. He went in and asked like how much, and they were like, well, you have to buy a minimum of 3, and they're 45 RMB each.
$5.
Yeah, each.
$6. Yeah.
Yeah, so you have to spend $18 for 3.
For 3.
Which they actually
for these ones?
Yeah, for those ones, and they actually end up
serious?
costing about $1 if you buy them here.
Yeah.
Well, if you could buy them here, but you can't anymore because they're all sold out.
Right.
So anyway, the price gouging is still real and it's going on all over China. Of course, that's just the way it is, and you're not going to be able to crack down on a little guy selling a mask on the side of the road or whatever.
Let's bring this back to the whole, finger pointing thing and how the WHO is using the CCP propaganda as their own narrative now.
Sure.
China, they can crack down on all these things as much as they want. And I see so many congratulations on Twitter and WeChat and stuff saying, look, our government's so good at finding these evil people.
Yeah.
It's not 2 people, dude.
Yeah.
It's not 2 people that they crack down on. And now the crisis is over. Now they're not price gouging and taking all these masks for themselves.
Yeah.
They do it symbolically.
Sure.
So they can say, look, you can trust us, right?
Yeah.
We know everything is fake.
Yeah.
All this data, all of this narrative, all this propaganda is fake in China.
They released a list of 7 Taobao shops that they caution people against buying from.
Oh, yeah, because there's only 7.
I'd say the majority of them would probably be selling things at a higher cost. Anyway, that's just the way it is. Now, see, we have some interesting kind of insight into what's going on currently all around China at the moment. I've spoken to friends in Beijing, I've spoken to my doctor friends in Shenzhen, and I've spoken to another friend of mine in Hunan province. And all of them have reported that they're what we call huayuans or gardens. It's kind of like your gated community. All of them now have basically been shut to outsiders. So
strangers, they say.
Yeah, strangers, basically. So let's say you live in your apartment and you order a delivery and it arrives. They're not allowed to come into your gated community. You have to go outside to meet them and fetch whatever it is. And if you want guests to come over, you have to sign responsibility for them. So as the house owner, you have to say, this person's going to come and stay with me for a day or whatever, and I accept responsibility for them. They're basically stopping people from coming and going from these apartment complexes. But not only that, any kind of school or bank or any kind of place where people gather, they have temperature scanners. They have to vet everybody that comes in and out, check them, that kind of thing. And this news, which actually I got last night, is about a Wai Mai, Xiao Ge. They say Wai Mai Xiao Ge over
delivery
here.
boy.
Delivery little boy. And he has been to 125 neighborhoods delivering stuff while being infected with the coronavirus. So this guy, because everyone's cooped up at home right now, think about it. They're doing what they're told. Most people that are smart anyway are staying in the house. But in order to survive, they have to order things. So they're ordering either medical supplies, or they're ordering food, or they're ordering, Wai Mai means food. Okay, so it's obviously a food delivery guy. So you got a guy delivering food to 125 different neighborhoods. I don't know how many people he's delivering to each place, because usually when they deliver to a specific complex, they'll deliver to more than one. You see, it's kind of like anywhere else in the world. They get orders and they say, okay, there's 5 people in that complex and you go and deliver. So this guy, infected with coronavirus, handling food, giving them to all these people, the potential for it to spread is massive. You know, this is just one of the many stories that are starting to come
The
out.
scary thing is that's one story.
Yeah,
That's one.
Course. It's one. And, you know, on top of that, we're talking about the WHO and the CDC. China has yet to allow the CDC in country to help with the coronavirus.
No, this is the bullshit thing.
Yeah.
Is China is now going all over social media, all over state media, CCTV, all this stuff, saying America has offered no help to China.
Well, they're just spreading panic and blah, blah, blah.
The CDC is one of the best organizations that could potentially deal with this.
I think it is the best organization.
The best. And they will not let them in. Why would you not let them in?
Well, let me
Unless you're hiding something.
Yeah, exactly. We continue to offer assistance to the Chinese. We have offered to send over the CDC and other U.S. medical and public health officials, White House National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien told CBS TV's Face the Nation on Sunday. We have not heard back yet from the Chinese on the offers, but we are prepared to continue to cooperate with them. So do you see what's happening here?
It's like the Xinjiang camps. Don't let private journalism. They say it's all fine, but they don't let private people go in there to report.
You know what's happening right now is they want to try and get things under control before they allow anyone in, because right now it's obviously such a mess. They don't want foreign eyes to look on it.
And I don't want to be dark, but I think there's a lot of things that they don't want people to see.
Of course.
Yeah.
Now, you see, the same thing once again happened during the 2008 Sichuan earthquake. Japanese disaster response teams volunteered to come over and help. Now, you know, Japan has a lot of experience dealing with tsunamis and earthquakes and all these kind of disasters. So they, again, are the best people to help.
Experts.
But China refused, or the CCP refused to let them come. I mean, eventually they ended up coming, but it was way too late. Now, you see, the offer to help was there. But again, I guess it was because they were worried about losing face. They didn't want the rest of the world to see how bad it was. And on top of that, they didn't want to have to say that Japan, who they hate, helped them, you know?
Face is poison. Absolute poison.
Absolutely. It's terrible. So, you know, you're dealing with a really bad situation. Help is being offered, and yet it's not being taken. Okay? And the World Health Organization's playing this down, saying, no, keep traveling. Why would you suggest that? And, okay, there's something else that's very important. Can you pull up our notes there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gotcha.
There are 3 things that the leader of the WHO, Tedros, whatever his name is, okay?
The dude shaking hand with
yeah,
she.
Okay. She's new friend. Okay. He said that we should not stop travel and trade with China because it's going to make it worse. Now, why did he say it's going to make it worse?
He said that if you impose travel restrictions, you can hinder info sharing.
Okay, now hang on. Before we even continue, I got to get a little thing up on the screen here. Let me just stop that again. Give me a second. So his first thing was that by preventing travel, we're going to what? Hinder?
Info sharing.
We're going to hinder info sharing. Okay, now maybe if we lived back in like the Middle Ages or something, when you needed carrier pigeons, and so you needed to basically rely on somebody coming through from I don't know where. Is this going to actually work or what? Sorry, give me a second here. Okay, if you had to rely on word of mouth, somebody arriving on a transatlantic ship to say, over there we've got sickness.
It would have been a really good opportunity for him to say, listen, China, maybe you should take down your info restrictions and unblock some of the social media platforms and all of the internet to the outside world so that people can communicate with each other. No, he said, don't stop planes.
Yeah.
Physical planes bringing viruses back and forth.
Yeah. How is it that you're going to hinder info sharing in the information age, where we can literally turn on our phones or our computers and find out what's happening right now?
You're China, and you have the Great Firewall of China.
Take it down. But yeah, if that's his argument, it's weak as fuck. I'm sorry, but look, like I said, we do not need to rely on physical person-to-person contact to share information anymore.
I'm delivering a letter for you.
Maybe like 200 years ago, before the telegram was invented or whatever. But, you know, this is ridiculous. So that's his number one reason for, oh, we should keep flying infected people in and out of China. That's the number one reason. What's his second reason?
Oh, by the way, this is after they already knew 5 million people had escaped with potentially with the virus from Wuhan.
This is after
everything.
This is after he's declared it an international medical emergency.
That's why I don't understand why you put that title on there and then say don't do anything about it.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense at all. What was his second reason that it's a bad idea?
He said that travel restrictions from China or into China is going to stop or hinder medical supply chains.
No, because we don't rely on passenger aircraft to shift medical supplies.
If you're doing that, then you've screwed up.
Yeah, exactly. We rely on container ships and we rely on, you know, whatever other way we get things across. Never mind the fact that the only thing that's actually restricting medical supply chains is the Chinese customs, who are refusing to let masks through.
And this is something we know on a personal level, with subscribers contacting us saying their packages are not arriving at the door of the people that need it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So screw yourself. That logic is weak as fuck as well.
Exactly. If we need to send medical supplies to China, guess what? We've got cargo planes. Load them up in C-130 Hercules and just fly them over there. You know, we've got ways to do this. You do not need 200 odd people on the Boeing 737 flying into an infected zone in order to get medical supplies there.
Like I said, if that was the case, then everyone has failed.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Okay, and what was the last reason? And this is probably his real reason.
And this is the one that it looks very despicable. He said that reducing travel to China or restricting travel to China will harm economies.
Who gives
no
a
shit?
You know what? Money is not more important than the life of people.
Well, according to the WHO,
families.
it is.
The WHO would put money and trade above the well-being of people around the world. So what is this, the World Trade Organization, not the World Health Organization? What is this?
Well, we've already let the Chinese government into the WTO as well and wreak havoc there. But this is actually something that's not about money anymore. This is about morality.
I've seen this from the beginning with the way that they've been dealing with this whole thing. Is they've been putting trade and money and China's feelings before the well-being and health of the citizens of the world, Chinese people included.
Yeah, for sure.
It's despicable, So this is what we've been dealing with. We're dealing with the World Health Organization, and the title of our video is that the World Health Organization belongs to Communist China, and evidently it does, because Communist China says jump, and the World Health Organization says how high. The communist Chinese people say, oh, it's not that bad. World Health Organization says, oh, it's not that bad.
It's a parrot.
Yeah.
At this point.
China says, hey, we don't want our trade to be, hurt. And so the World Health Organization says, okay, don't worry, we got you. We'll just tell everybody we shouldn't stop planes and trade. We shouldn't slow things down. Don't worry, we got you.
How is the rest of the world not laughing in the face of the WHO? And this is an issue I have, is that a ton of these nationalists, probably government-paid trolls on our videos, have been saying, I'm not going to listen to you. Why don't you quote the WHO and their reliable statistics? And this is what makes me a little nervous, is that when you start seeing copy-paste stuff from Wumaos, like internet trolls, you know that there's probably something on the forums or a directive somewhere, and their new thing is like, we trust the WHO. Where is this blind trust coming from?
Because they know the WHO is very pro-China at the moment, and so that
it works perfectly in their favor, and that's why you should ignore it.
Yeah, you should. Now, I have to point something out. Can you bring up that statistics page with all the number of infected and so on? Let's give it a refresh and see if it's changed. Now, this, by the way, is I'm sure everybody. We can't put it up right now.
That black one,
but it's from the John Hopkins CSSE. Okay, we've all seen that site. Now, the data sources that it gives us, where they're coming from: WHO, CDC,
yeah, this is important.
ECDC, NHC, and DXY. These are the data sources. Now, there are a couple of very reliable data sources there. For instance, the CDC,
Center for Disease Control.
However, they can only report on the cases within the United States and other, international countries that share their information.
That's why I wish there was like an asterisk for that one.
Yeah.
Because you look at that and you look at these numbers and like, oh, the CDC did it. Oh, I believe that, right?
Yeah, but the thing is,
only internationally.
All of the numbers that you see in mainland China, which of course is the majority right now, sitting at 19,668 for mainland China. The rest are international. Yeah. Those are the numbers that are coming from the Chinese government, which cannot be trusted. And it's proven that they cannot be trusted. They don't have enough test kits.
The people in China are already saying this.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that there aren't enough test kits going around in Wuhan, which is not something that's bullshit, that's actually even been confirmed by the Chinese government. How can they give reliable data if they can't test everyone? You know, so you got someone coming in there, oh, I've got symptoms. And they're like, well, you know, sorry, we can't test you. So then they don't have a positive or a negative.
Not to mention all of these people in like quarantine or whatever that are dying or whatever. Like they have official death reports on this. Give me a break.
Not at the moment. It's just they're putting out fires. They're dealing with a massive crisis over there. And it's awful. Especially since I know medical personnel in China right now. I know what they're going through.
It's hell.
It's especially in the government hospitals. I'm not, you know, there's a bunch of private hospitals and stuff in, you know, all these different big cities, and you know that's different because the general public don't go to them. They're too expensive. Like the Hong Kong University Hospital in Shenzhen, nobody will go there. But if you go to the DR Rimen Yuyuan or whatever in Shenzhen, you will see the chaos that's going on there, and all the clinics that are dealing with the little neighborhoods. These guys are under a huge amount of stress, and they really need our support, both morally and, if possible, through donations and so on.
If possible.
If possible, but it's so difficult because you can't trust the Red Cross. The Chinese Red Cross has got a track record of, you know, Guo Mei Mei and all the bullshit.
I mean, they're already
scandals.
getting caught now, even by private citizens in China, finding that they're the boxes in the back of the truck for the Red Cross. You know,
exactly.
In the back of the cars.
By the way, we have linked in our description a link to our friend Simon Yu.
He just did a great video.
He's an average Chinese guy, and you can go and watch his take on the whole thing. He's in Shanghai at the moment.
He just did a great video.
Yeah, I suggest you go and watch that. He talks about the Red Cross thing quite a bit, so please go and take a look.
For sure.
But, you know, all of that aside, it's tough. The people are going through hell, especially the medical personnel at the moment. And the way the Chinese government and the WHO is playing this down is despicable because it's delegitimizing what they're doing, first of all, and it's putting everyone else in danger. Now, guys, I'm going to say something very important and I need you to pay attention right now. Don't fall for this bullshit about being racist if you take precautions. And I want you to listen to something I'm going to tell you. Right now, mainland Chinese people are buying out the masks and the hand sanitizers and whatnot from your local pharmacy or your local shop. Now, why are they doing that? It's because they are genuinely concerned, because they are right to be concerned and they know what's going on. Are you going to call them racist because they're being overly cautious? What about all the Chinese people that are refusing to go near anyone who's just traveled from Wuhan? Are you going to call them racist because they are avoiding these people because they know what's going on? Don't be a fool. Don't fall into this trap of, oh, I don't want to seem to be discriminatory. You know, don't be that guy.
Then don't be discriminatory.
Yeah.
It's simple, right?
Yeah. If someone has traveled from Wuhan or even from China, because we've been reading all these like blog posts on Chinese social media that are telling people how to trick the system. They're like, oh, if you've traveled to Wuhan, very simple. Make sure you get to Guangzhou. Cross the border into Macau, cross the border into Hong Kong, fly from there, fly from this place because it hasn't been locked down yet, fly from here, go there first. First, fly to India, then you can fly to the US, you know, or wherever. You've got people basically giving a playbook on how to escape if you are infected or if you've been through an infected
Under current
area.
restrictions, yeah.
So when you have someone flying in from China, there is always a possibility that that person could be infected. And you should treat it as such. And you shouldn't feel bad about that. You should be taking these precautions to protect yourself and your family. So, like I said in my previous video, if you live in an Asian neighborhood where you know that people have been coming and going from China, especially recently with the Chinese New Year, take extra precautions. If you shop at Asian supermarkets where you know that there are people shopping there that very possibly could have been in and out of China recently, take extra precautions. Wear a mask, wash your hands more, you know. Don't feel as if you're going to make someone uncomfortable because you know what? Screw their feelings. Feelings are not as important as your safety and your family's safety. We have to look past all this shit. And remember, just take the example from the Chinese people that are smart about this, the Chinese people that are wearing masks, the Chinese people that are washing their hands more, the Chinese people that are buying the shelves empty of all that stuff because they know how dangerous this is. They are the ones that are going to protect themselves, right? So follow them, basically. Yeah. Anyway, that's what I wanted to say about that.
All right.
Yeah. Cool. So, guys, we're going to have to answer some of your questions now. I say that as if it's a bad thing, but it's not true. We want to answer your questions.
Maybe pop this on the big screen. We don't need to look at this guy.
Sorry.
Now. Yeah. Deanne Chapman, my wife is on a last-ditch attempt to get back home, Shenzhen to Shanghai, and then maybe to Melbourne. But no guarantees the flight will happen. We are hearing this left and right now, and my condolences, and I hope she gets out.
I heard that Australia stopped accepting people flying in from China. Is that true?
Apparently.
Look, mate, I can only wish you the best of luck. And here's the thing. You also have to be very responsible about this. If your wife is flying in, make sure that you you get her to self-quarantine. It's super important. You know, don't take a chance.
And get her tested.
Just be responsible about it, you know. I wish you the best of luck and I hope that she makes it through.
Agreed.
I hate to see people being separated from family. I'm separated from family in China right now and friends. And it's not cool, but you know what? We have to be taking proper precautions over here. So yeah, please make sure that you look after her.
Space Otter says, I just ran across this creator of U.S. bioweapons acts as coronavirus a biological warfare weapon. He mentions a level 4 disease facility in Wuhan, India has floated this idea as well. This is the kind of stuff we're avoiding.
Yeah.
And
we don't want to speculate. That's why we're trying to deal in facts here. And at least
But it's good that people are looking into other things, right? Not that I agree with it, but it's good that people are keeping like an open mind about what's happening because we don't know.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of byproduct of the CCP when they leave everyone in the dark. People come up with crazy shit.
They do.
Right?
Yeah.
Roy says, do you know if the rich are impacted as the poor or the well-to-do doing better? Do the rich shop at wet markets?
You know, there's a funny thing in China. Even rich people still shop at wet markets.
Sure.
But it's not usually... You know, people of our generation know, but their parents do.
Sure.
So, I mean, there's still that. But I will say that the rich people are not nearly as badly affected at the moment.
No, they'll have the connections.
Yeah, people sitting in their fancy apartments in the fancy parts of town, driving around in their cars, kind of thinking everything's cool. You know,
they know
in the
doctors,
nice areas.
They know where to get the masks.
Yeah, exactly. And that's all good for them. But the poor people are the ones that are suffering the most.
Oh, absolutely. Just in any crisis,
I mean, never mind the level of education, which is a stumbling block here, but also they have to rely on the public hospitals and they have to rely on all this crap and not being able to go to buy fancy food from an expensive place or whatever. So, you know, my heart goes out to them big time.
Right. Matthew Nugent says, best guys anywhere, thank you for doing what you do.
Well, thank you. We really appreciate it. We hope that we can spread... like legitimate information and even the speculation that we have, like for instance the numbers being wrong out of China, that's, by the way, that's not speculation, it's just fact. There's no way, and especially in this current crisis situation, that the numbers can be accurate even if there were the best intentions of getting it out. The problem is we know that that's not how China works. So when we bring you speculation, it's based on our own personal experience, having lived in China for so long and having dealt and still dealing with Chinese people on a daily basis. Don't forget, it's impossible for us to escape it because we have Chinese family. Anyway, what's the next one?
Next guy, I'll translate into English. He basically says, like, the Chinese government is asking you whether your face or your people are more important. And he's got a lot of friends that he's worried about.
Yeah.
And we understand.
Yeah, no, it's terrible. Listen, again, right now there's a lot of disinformation and there's a misinformation campaign coming out of the Chinese government. They want people to see foreigners as the problem. They want to divert attention away from their own failings. Okay, so they're ramping up nationalist rhetoric. They're putting on like shows of people singing songs and, you know, like all the positive vibes that they can send and stuff. But once again, they are not in any way, shape or form criticizing themselves or their shortcomings and trying to find solutions to the mistakes they keep making and they continue to make. It's not like, oh, mistakes they made in the beginning. I mean, they still haven't brought to task the people who arrested the doctors who were trying to raise the alarm in the first place. You know, things like that.
You're going to see continual cover-ups.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's happening to the protests in Hong Kong since the outbreak? Well, a lot of people in Hong Kong that I've been talking to are their utmost concern right now is keeping Hong Kong safe.
Sure.
And there's been a lot of hemming and hawing about closing the borders and things like that. And Hong Kong would be a ripe place for this to spread, right? number one, it's an international hub. And number two, everyone lives in super close quarters.
Sure.
And you're on the border with China, right? So imagine all of a sudden it starts blowing up there and we find out the truth through Hong Kong, just like we did through SARS, right? And that's what they're trying to avoid. So the protests, I wouldn't say their message hasn't changed.
No.
But they're bringing this into the situation.
The doctors are on strike. A lot of them are on strike now. Look, you have to understand that Hong Kong had to deal with the SARS outbreak before. And they were the ones who actually properly identified it and actually dealt with it and figured out what the hell was going on. They kind of probably sick and tired of having to deal with the crap, that the mainland keeps handing them. Okay, so especially the doctors that are overwhelmed. You will also find that, of course, a lot of mainland people will go to Hong Kong for medical treatment because it's superior in every way, shape, and form. Obviously, there's a lot of birth tourism because if you have your child born in Hong Kong, it becomes a Hong Kong citizen. So you can, in the past, escape the one-child policy. But it also, gives you access to allow your child to go to school in Hong Kong and to have a different citizenship, just kind of like birth tourism in the US. So you do have a lot of mainland people coming over to take advantage of the medical system, and I think they're worried.
Honestly, if you have the means, you'd be foolish not to.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think they're worried that what's going to happen is because of the failings of the medical system in mainland China, that they're going to be overwhelmed by the amount of people coming over the border trying to seek medical attention in Hong Kong, which is understandable. The city has a capacity, and China has an unlimited, endless supply of medical patients that they could send over to Hong Kong, and Hong Kong wouldn't be able to cope and wouldn't be able to look after its own citizens, which is, of course, the main concern here.
Yes. This guy quotes our theme song. Thank you. Thanks for all you do, guys. Been viewing your content for about a year. Without your channel, I don't think I'd have sufficient context to parse new info. Wishing you the best to you and your families. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Problem with political institutions. Private institutions always do a much better job. I agree. A tabloid here called the China virus, and the next day the Chinese embassy complained about it and made an online petition demanding an apology. It shows you their priorities.
Yeah.
It shows you their priorities.
Yeah.
I'd rather have an apology than accept the CDC's help.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest, that this virus does come from China.
Yeah.
As did SARS.
Sure. Of course.
Why can we not say that? It's not wrong to say that this comes from China. This virus comes from China. It really does. And no one's disproving that.
Until we get rid of national distinctions, then what else are we going to call it?
Exactly.
The exact coordinate virus, like in 22 north.
Yeah, this longitude and latitude. No.
Peter Blantesic, thank you. I'll post this again. Two Chinese mainstream websites, Tencent and NetEase, accidentally reported the real numbers in order to rectify them later. Infected 170,000 deaths, 20,000. I still can't confirm that. I did see that, and I saw it right when it happened.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for someone to be able to confirm that.
Yeah, it's tough, guys. There's a lot of speculation, of course.
It'd be easy for us to just start.
We could tell you what we really think,
right?
What we privately discuss, but that would be irresponsible.
Let's have some integrity.
Yeah, absolutely. It is way worse than it's being reported, though. That I can guarantee you. Right. I can absolutely guarantee you. Even if it's worse by a factor of 1, it could be worse by a factor of 10. We don't know, but it's definitely worse.
A basic lack of hygiene, sanitation, lungs destroyed by pollution and chain smoking in China means it'll be much worse than it should be. Why can't the CCP program its people to wash hands? And I got so much shit for this when I said the general public, at least a good chunk of the older generation, does not understand properly viruses and bacteria, right? I caught so much shit for that. And guess what? There's still no soap in public places in China. Restaurants, hospitals, literally the birth ward. There's no soap.
There's no soap.
So that's just how it is. So how do you think these viruses and bacteria spread?
It's unfortunate. I mean, my mother-in-law is here now, and my father-in-law, which, they came just at the right time to get stranded here with me for an extended period of time, which I'm thrilled about. Can you see how
you think you're in a different boat?
See how happy I am right now?
What, are you trying to claim the only person?
No. But what I'm trying to say is that I consider my parents-in-law to be from a middle-class family, which they are in China. And I still see, these very sort of bad personal hygiene practices. Like my mother-in-law just spat on the ground the other day walking around my neighborhood. And my wife had to, very embarrassed, by the way, it's incredibly embarrassing to my wife, had to tell her, look, you can't do that. And she's like, oh, it's okay, nobody saw me.
That's the logic.
It's like, no, you can't do it because that's how disease spreads, And unfortunately, we're dealing with a generation of people of that age, our parents-in-law's age, who still think that spitting in public is totally fine, littering is totally fine, smoking everywhere is totally fine. And And so this is not helping. And that's why we're seeing such a massive spread in China compared to the rest of the world, because you have these unsanitary practices which are actually just accepted and no one calls anyone out on it. I've never once in my entire 14 and a half years in China ever seen anyone say to someone, hey,
don't do that.
Why did you spit that massive loogie on my shoe? Or like, what did you do that for? Like, don't do that. It's disgusting. I've never seen that once.
Why'd you throw that bag of diapers out your window?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No one, whatever.
I mean, it's just because the Chinese society is very non-confrontational. It just is. People don't want to get into other people's business because they're worried about causing trouble for themselves, right?
And who knows who that person is?
Yeah,
right?
because what if this guy's like
an official?
Yeah, communist
he
official.
Could make their life hell.
Yeah, and you say, hey, what the hell are you doing spitting like that? And he's like,
you're
oh,
done.
really? Yeah.
What's your name?
So, yeah.
So I think this level of incompetence and heartlessness from the CCP is no surprise. Mao starved tens of millions. My heart and prayers are with the beautiful people of China like us. They deserve better rulers.
Absolutely.
I've said this from day one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Again, we're constantly being accused of being anti-Chinese.
The
but
government is not the people.
No, unfortunately,
don't like the government.
Unfortunately, the government has managed to get to a point where it's convinced half of the population or most of the population that you cannot separate Chinese people from the country and from the government.
My mother-in-law, Nep, she was always brainwashed. She never used to say this. Now she says the government is the people and China is the government. So you can't have an argument anymore without labeling everyone in China if you call out the Gongchandang, the CCP.
Yeah. The Gongchandang's a piece of shit.
Burn in hell.
The way they've been dealing with the situation is immoral and bad. Okay? The Chinese people are deserving of a much better leadership.
Let me say something. Why do you think the coronavirus videos that we've been putting out get so many views, right? And I'll put it to you this way. The world, I think, can be quite a generous place and a moral place for the most part, especially people with good education, good moral compass, right?
Sure.
But we've been, for the past few years, trying to promote Chinese people, human beings, that deserve better than the current leadership, that oppresses them to no end.
Yeah.
By every metric, right? We are getting more views. Do you know why? Because now the CCP's mistakes is hurting potentially the entire world.
Yeah.
Right? Before, our care for the Chinese people stops there. And people are like, whatever, it's not my country, right?
Sure.
It's interesting to watch these guys in China, but it's not going to happen here, right?
Yeah.
Now people care. And this is the shit we've been saying for years. And I don't want to say I told you so, but this kind of stuff, the way the CCP operates, is the reason these kind of crises happen. And this is one of the first times it's really going to screw over the world.
It's going to happen again.
It will.
Unless they're brought to task. And I think this is something that people keep looking past. When they see me or you criticizing the way the government has handled and is still handling the situation, they blame us as some kind of, hate-mongering, whatever they want to call us. But at the same time, all they can do is praise the government. Look how fast they're building this hospital. Look at
Western
how well,
media.
Look how well they're doing this. Look, the WHO is even praising them. Great. So then what's going to happen is, after this is all said and done, the Chinese government, the CCP, is going to pat themselves on the back and say,
victory.
Look at what a great job we did. Even the whole world says that we're so good. We're so great. Look,
and they will.
We did all this stuff. And then they're going to just sweep everything under the rug. And the next time this breaks out, they'll deal with it in exactly the same way. Try to cover it up. And unless people are like, stop screwing over your own citizens. Stop being so terrible towards Chinese people and really hold them to account. They're not going to have an incentive to actually stop this bad behavior.
100% agree.
Anyway.
Greetings from Shanghai. My gated community is closed off too. Interesting to see how the situation brings out the worst in some who profit and the best in others who hand out masks, etc. Keep up the great work.
Agreed. And we cannot
fight the good fight.
Undermine the people that are really putting in the effort.
But they're getting no spotlight.
Yeah. There are a couple of very, very brave people at the moment who are, like I said, risking their freedom and their life to bring us information out of Wuhan. And those people have to be commended. I will be giving a spotlight to one of them in my Friday video. And the people that are being generous and handing out masks and doing that kind of thing, they need to be lauded. They're really doing a fantastic job, especially since, and I hate to say this, but the Chinese government is actually making it incredibly hard for people to donate medical supplies and money and so on, simply because of the lack of transparency and the corrupt channels through which you are allowed to donate. You don't want to be giving money and masks if you don't know where they're going, you want to make sure they end up where you're donating them to the hospitals that matter. And then when you find out that they're sitting in some government officials' baijiu den, you know, and they're in the wrong hospitals, or they're being sold, you know, at a profit, you're going to lose all faith. You know, we need to have transparent channels to donate and to care for the people in need.
Absolutely.
Anyway.
CCP has lost the mandate of heaven. CCP is the real coronavirus. I agree. Hey guys, I'm from Switzerland. WHO is actually super corrupt, sadly. Stay awesome.
Absolutely, and this is showing it. This entire crisis is showing how bad the WHO is and how they favor money and trade over the well-being and health of people around the world.
Mm. Did you hear that WeChat is reportedly suspending accounts tied to Wuhan IDs? So are we now going into the digital quarantine mode now? Well, in the first protests in Xinjiang, they shut down the entire communication.
They actually shut down the internet.
So I'm not going to say that that's false.
No, and they might actually do it. They might shut down the internet in Wuhan. It's entirely possible if things get worse. I feel like they're probably going to stabilize, though. At least, if not stabilize, at least just continue kind of the way it's going at the moment. Now they have all their hospitals set up. They've just completed those prefab hospitals, which, by the way, it's more like a construction site with temporary housing than a hospital. We have to understand. We have to see it for what it is. They lay down a big concrete slab. They put a bunch of prefab isolation rooms, and it's going to be it's going to be the only way they can deal with this. But
I've got some videos from inside it, and it's pretty grim. I'll share that a little bit later.
Yeah, it's basically the way it's been set up is so that people can be locked in to the rooms. You know, to quarantine them, which, you know, I guess makes sense. But let's see how that all unfolds. But I do think that they're probably going to get a handle on it eventually, you know, so hopefully they don't cut off communications. And they would only do that if it got worse. Yeah, anyway.
When I saw the title, I was like, did The Who make a CCP-backed album or something? You know, a good theme song for this whole thing should be? What? From The Who, Won't Be Fooled Again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's not
Wake
bad.
up.
Yeah. Yep.
Daniel Lesk, been following you guys for years from New York City. Who would have thought that two drunken bike nerds would become the preeminent alt media commentators of truth on the coronavirus crisis? Keep up the good work.
Thanks, man. I wish we could just be drunk bikers. We're supposed to be on an adventure today, sharing.
Oh my gosh, we're dying.
We'll get back to it.
Been a while since I watched y'all. Always loved the moto vlogs. Can you shout out your car channel because I saw it in a video but forgot the name? Great coverage on the coronavirus dudes.
Sure, it's Worthless Whips.
Yep, just look up Worthless Whips. Give us a sub. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm from Germany, same media here. Flu is worse. So they're doing the same thing in Germany.
Absolutely, they are. Guys, this surgical masks being sold out is a real thing. I've been getting people sending me messages from all over, from small little towns, you know, in obscure parts of different countries where it's all sold out. And I mean, if in South Africa they're sold out, it's bad. And then you find out that like in Kansas and very small little places around America, like places that are not where you would expect, they're all sold out. And in Germany and in France and in, you know, it's a real thing. I mean, do a little experiment. Go down to where you would normally buy these 3M masks and see if there are any on the shelves. And if there are, get yourself a box for your family, because if not, the Chinese community there is going to buy all of them, you know, because they know it's and serious.
They need them.
Yeah.
Hello from Seattle. Only $5 to stream because I bought surgical masks from this video. Get well soon, Wuhan. Amen.
Good stuff.
I absolutely love everything you do. Keep speaking the truth. Censorship is a crime. I hope you do an interview with Luke from We Are Change soon. Thank you.
I'm not sure who that is, but
yeah, thank you so much for tracking this, including highlighting the timeline. I think it's very important. We did that on both these videos. Accuracy and faith in information is so hard to come by.
Correct.
Thank you very much. All right, guys.
Yes. Listen, it was serious. Please bear with us. Next week, we're hoping that we don't need to cover this as much anymore. We're hoping things die down. We're keeping a very close eye on it. We're basically living this day by day, and we want to bring you accurate information. I think the takeaway from this is everybody, please take this a lot more seriously than the media is trying to tell you. And it's better to be prepared. You know, isn't that the Boy Scout thing? Be prepared.
Absolutely.
So be prepared. Make sure you have some medical masks. Stay away from potentially infectious areas, such as big gatherings in, you know, Asian supermarkets and so on. If you know of anyone who's just recently returned from China, without making them feel bad, limit contact. just for now. Remember, it's about a 14-day incubation period. So
and maybe post-incubation period.
Yeah, they're saying that there may be a post-recovery, thing as well. But please be very careful, and that's all. Look
Anyone
after
watching
yourself.
in China, to the Chinese friends, keep it up. Please be safe as well. And I pray and I hope that the CCP doesn't completely drop the ball at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. I just wanted to respond. Someone said not all Asians are Chinese. Of course not.
No,
that's not the thing.
No one said that.
But being able to speak Chinese and recognize my Cantonese is terrible. My Mandarin's pretty good, but my Cantonese is awful, but I can still recognize it. As I go to all the different Asian supermarkets and Asian areas in LA and in California where I've been, the majority of language that I hear spoken is Mandarin, followed by Cantonese. So when I go to a place like 99 Ranch, which is a kind of a branch, it's like a chain, most people are speaking Cantonese and Mandarin, so they're Chinese. If I go to pretty much any tourist spot, the Asian people that are walking around usually speaking Chinese. So I know from my own personal experience that the majority of Asian people that I come across in California are Chinese. I'd say like 80% of all the Asian people I've run into. And I've tried to stress this in my previous video that we should not be nasty, discriminatory, or racist towards people of Asian ethnicity. We absolutely have to be very careful of that. But at the same time, we cannot be stupid and put ourselves and our families at risk by not acknowledging the fact that if you are in a majority Asian area or Asian supermarkets, the chances of someone recently returning from China is high. And so we should take extra precautions. And that doesn't mean be an asshole, okay? So that's my message to you. Anyway, anything you'd like to add before we sign off?
Thanks for joining, guys. We'll see you on the podcast, I believe, next week.
Is it
next Thursday? Yeah.
Is it next Thursday?
Yeah.
No, it's not. Oh, it is. Not this Thursday. Sorry.
See you next Thursday on ADV Podcast. And we'll hopefully be back to normal next Monday.
Yeah.
I got a video on Wednesday all about the coronavirus and actually more about someone that recently escaped.
Yeah.
An interview there. And on Friday, you're going to highlight a bit more as well, right?
Absolutely. We've got some very important messages coming this week, guys. Stay strong. Stay safe. Can't wait to see you in the next one. And as always, you know the drill. Stay awesome.